Hello everyone, so today's tutorial is all about reverse applique. Admittedly, I don't use as much as I use ordinary applique, but it's still a great technique to know how to use, especially if you want to add just a tiny little small amount of color to your design. And if you try and add, if you don't have hemming tape or applique paper or some way of securing that fabric before you start stitching, you'll find it gets stuck on your needle. So this is a great way to stop that from happening. There's two different techniques to doing this, so I've included both of these in this tutorial, so continue watching to the end because there's two different ways. And just to let you know, this is a very old and ancient technique of embroidery. It was done by hand and it was called Mola making. It's still done in many cultures today, but today I'm going to show you how to do it using an ordinary sewing machine. So let's get started. Super simple, nice easy technique. So I'm just going to use some scrap fabric just to show you how it's done. I've got three, they're all plain, just bits of fabric there, and a very simple design on top. So let's begin. So I'm going to do the circle with free motion embroidery, and then I'm going to switch back to my ordinary sewing foot to do the straight lines. Right, it's going to change to my ordinary sewing foot. So just a super little handy trick, so you don't have to keep stopping and starting with your threads between each line of stitching. You just use a pair of scissors or a pencil or anything blunt to make a loop of thread on your top fabric, and that you hold down securely, and then you move your fabric as little as possible to get to your next line of stitching, so there's no big loop of thread at the back to get caught in your bobbin. And then you continue to stitch your lines, and you can just snip the threads afterwards. It saves quite a bit of time when you're doing a simple design like this. Right, so there we have our very basic design stitched out. Now we get some nice sharp embroidery scissors. Okay, now you're going to very carefully cut through your layers of fabric. So for our top layer, cut close to that stitching. Now we can reveal our first color. Now, the second round of stitching. Okay, with this type of fabric, I'm going to have to go around, do a line of zigzag before we get to the next round of colour. So let me just do that quick. Right, back to where we were. So this layer, we're going to take out the black. And now we take out the next layer, take off the black as well. Underneath the black we find the grey. So now whether you're doing straight stitch or zigzag stitch on these lines all depends on your fabrics that you've used. So because I've used sort of calico, which is a fairly open weave fabric, I need to do all my outlines in satin stitch. The fabric I tried this on before wasn't quite so open weave, so yeah. So I think for this one I'm actually going to go through to the orange, seeing as we've cut through there already, and then we'll add that into our design. So just want to make sure we don't cut through the orange as well. So that can happen. Right, let's get on with the stitching. So again for this I'm going to switch back to my original sewing foot. Right, so I've got my satin foot on and I've got my feed dogs, my fabric guides underneath are engaged. So pull the button straight to the top. And make it just stitch over those lines. for now I'm keeping the satin stitch quite open, sorry. I'll go over that again at the end when I neaten everything up. For now I just want to show you how to do this. Okay, now we're going to do a grey layer and try and only cut through those two. It's quite tricky. You've got to, you do this, get yourself a bit of practice before you start this on a big project, because it is easy to cut too much and then have to make adaptations. Okay, now we're going to try for the grey, and hopefully we don't cut too much. Right, just going to do the line of zigzag around there, and then we'll do our outer border. Okay, now I'm just going to go around the outside edges in our satin stitch. So to create a nice even line of satin stitching, you want to do your first round at a stitch width of 2.5 with your stitch length on sort of the very first blip that you can after 0, so it's very close together. Do your round and then go over it again, but set your stitch width at about a 3. So it just covers the line that you did before, and then do your same round the border again, and you'll find that it creates a lovely raised line of solid stitching, which looks really good. Very super simple reverse applique design. So it looks like on the back, and that's our front. Okay, so we're going to start as for ordinary free motion embroidery. I've got no backing on it, it's just the fabric and the hoop, and I'm just going to do a super simple design so I can show you how this works. One thing to note, I did draw these little lines in the middle of the leaf, which is wrong. Those should not be there. You'll see now. Right, so for these, the parts that we're going to cut out, I'm going to go around those parts at least twice, maybe even 3 times. Right, so just as we did for our cut work, we're going to do the same thing. So using your applique, just to make a little hole there. Then using nail scissors or embroidery scissors or whatever you happen to have. We're going to carefully, that's a bit blunt, we're just going to cut out as close to that stitching as we can without cutting through too much of the stitching. Now, you need to pin the fabric that you want to stitch down. You're going to pin that onto the back. So, and then just pin that there just to keep it out of the way. Right, we're going to stitch around the outer edge again in straight stitch. Pin there slightly. Now, what you do next is entirely up to you as to what effect you want. You can leave it just like that, if you like the frayed edges, like this. Or you could obviously do a satin stitch around the edge. You can trim these further and do another line of straight stitch. It's entirely up to you how you handle the front. I'm actually just going to leave this one just like this, which means that I can then cut away my background fabric. I'd advise leaving all of this fabric here in place until if you're going to do satin stitch, that sort of thing, leave it in place and trim it afterwards. But because I'm just going to do the one line of straight stitching, because the satin, although it frays to quite a large degree, it's not, if I leave enough like this little border around here, it means that it's not going to come through. And it should be enough to keep my design like that. This really is just a scrap piece of fabric. As you can see, it's not the first time I've drawn my first attempt at a flower this morning. But so be it. Okay, so there's our flower. Okay, I'm going to repeat the same thing for the leaves. Again, just using a little scrap of fabric that I've got here, and do the not so shiny side. So for the leaves, just to show you, I'm going to do a very small zigzag, quite a narrow zigzag just around the edge, just to show you how nicely we can neaten up those edges. So just using my hand wheel to check where my needle's going to go, so we can move that. Okay, and then we switch back to straight stitch, and we can do our central vein of the leaf. Okay, so it's a very small, so it's really dark today, it's storming outside. You can see that tiny little pop of colour there in the middle. Alright, so I'm going to repeat the same process for this leaf. But yes, so that's just added those little pops of colour to behind our leaves there and our flowers. So it gives you the two different ways, two different effects you can get if you're looking for a more scrappy sort of rough look or the slightly neater look. You can obviously do that much neater. I've just done it quickly there. Okay. And then as before, I'm just going to cut away all the excess fabrics here at the back. So there's nothing shining through.
Okay, so that's the two different methods of working with reverse applique.
As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next week for another tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.